At the beginning of the year 450, in Spain, in the south and in the center of Gaul, there were strong earthquakes which provoked the panic of the population. To this was added the solar eclipse and the appearance of a comet. In such a situation, even ordinary sunsets seemed bloody, thunderstorms and extraordinary flashes. In the east, on the 28th of July, the Emperor Theodosius died, having smashed his head when he fell from his horse. The Augusta Pulcheria married General Marcian, 59, a friend of the consul and General Asper. Thus Marcian became the emperor on the 25th of August. Of course, he gave the solemn promise not to harm the virginity of his august woman over 50. In October, died Galla Placidia. The new Roman Emperor of the Orient asked Attila to build relations on an equal basis and proposed to interpret the payments of his empire to the Huns not as a tribute but as an aid to an ally. Without knowing it, he repeated exactly the gesture of the Chinese emperors who dispatched the tributes to the descendants of Modin by disguising them in the form of help to neighbors. Living in a difficult climate. In order to calm Attila and get rid of the great eunuch, perfidious and authoritarian, Marcian decided to judge Chrysotheus. Soon this former prime minister, deprived of his immunity, was stoned in the street by the crowd. Marcian told his entourage that he had announced to Attila his will to defend the honor of the empire with a weapon in his hands. It is hard to believe that he could dare to challenge Attila after the recent crushing defeat of the empire. Probably it was the ordinary exaggeration of Roman propaganda. It is enough to recall the imaginary victories of Theodosius over the Persians and all the false assertions about the victories of Boniface in Africa. Having decided to attack the Roman Empire of the West, which refused to send Princess Honoria to him, Attila did not pay attention to the actions of the Emperor Marcian. He noted only that the Romans, despite all their defeats and difficulties, continued to believe themselves obstinately superior to the others. It was clear that at the first opportunity they would do anything to destroy the new Hun Empire. He has too much yielded to the flattery and the assurances of friendship of the patricians of Constantinople. Aetius knows that by violating his two solemn oaths of fidelity to the Huns, by showing himself the adversary of Attila's marriage with Honoria, he becomes the greatest enemy of his old friend. He took this step, very risky for him, having ripped off the promise of the Emperor Valentinian to grant the hand of his daughter, the Princess Eudoxie, to her son Gaudentius. Empress Eudoxia, the wife of Valentinian, was the daughter of Theodosius. Marcian and Pulcheria constituted a fictitious family, so Aetius reckoned that one day his Gaudentius would become the emperor, not only of the Western Roman Empire, but that he could claim the imperial diadem of the Eastern Roman Empire. For this Aetius was to organize a strong resistance to Attila, to present himself as a savior of the empire and to marry his son with the Princess Eudoxie. One could even get rid of this capricious Valentinian and, after having reconciled then with the Huns, enter with a new army allied to Constantinople, reunite the empire. Then he can conclude an agreement with Attila and create the Roman Hunnic Empire of their dream, where the main role will be played by the Romans. On the other hand, if he favors Attila's marriage with Honoria, Aetius will probably be deprived of power. Against him will act not only Honoria, but also Orestes and Oneses. But can he resist Attila? He can count only on his knowledge of the customs of the Huns and their tactics of the conduct of war. Indeed, no one among the Romans knows it better than Aetius. Thus he knows very well that the goal of Attila will not be the occupation of the great territories, and that the invasion of the great masses of the cavalry outside the zone of the steppes never last long. These expeditions are always short and last for no more than 4 or 5 months. As horses cannot bear more effort and must return to their pasture, it will be necessary to activate only when Attila, 4 months after the beginning of the invasion, will begin the withdrawal of its cavalry. It will then suffice to discreetly follow the departing Hun troops in order to create the illusion of an offensive in order to then shout victory. He knows well how Attila is thrifty for the lives of his horsemen. It is enough, therefore, that the Roman infantry can resist the attacks of the cavalry, protecting themselves from great shields. Fortunately, he managed to get his legionnaires to wear helmets and even cuirasses and to use for their protection large metal shields. What great efforts this has asked him! But now there is hope of enduring a possible battle with the cavalry, eager to go home with his booty. After such an analysis of his possibilities, Aetius becomes quieter. A large army must be mobilized. In the first year of the war, Attila probably will attack Gaul in order to ensure the participation in the campaign of his German allies. So much the better. Gaul is filled with Visigoths and Alans whose ancestors fled from the Hun offensive of the Black Sea 3/4 of a century ago, but also the Franks, Burgunds and other barbarians hostile to the Huns who, under his request, fought these barbarians by protecting Gaul during the last 2 decades. The private detachments of the great landowners will merge like brooks into rivers. During the war with the Eastern Roman Empire, the Huns freed the slaves, but took the rich to demand a ransom. But how will the poor behave? Indeed, the Bagaudes may be next to Attila. It is said that the Greek Eudox returned to Gaul and led the propaganda, explaining to the peasants that Attila will retain their autonomy and will receive only 10% of taxes on their income. Let us therefore promise these rebels an amnesty, the preservation of the autonomy of the territories controlled by them, and even the total exemption from taxes. We'll see after. In any case, Attila will lead the war without hurrying. Terrorized, Valentinian will accept during the 2nd or 3rd year of the war the marriage of his daughter Eudoxie with Gaudentius. In order to frighten the poor emperor more, it is necessary to circulate the rumor about the possible betrayal of King Alan's Sangiban and the secret negotiations of the Huns with the Vandals. The Emperor Valentinian summons Salvian and says confidentially, "I am not quite sure yet, that Attila and Aetius have become real enemies. What do you think?" Salvian also do not know what to think. "I suppose that for Attila it is more advantageous to marry Honoria than to try to reach an agreement with Aetius, who is very uncertain. And consequently he has not abandoned the idea of marriage. In addition, he has another noble Roman friend Orestes. That's why I do not see any great interest for Attila to stand for Aetius. But Aetius, as we know well, is capable of any unexpected combination. Why does he have such authority in his soldiers? Aetius has a noble and pleasant appearance. His illusory benevolence deceived even Count Bonifacius. He is an excellent cavalier of the Hun school, well archer, and excels in all the other military exercises, which provokes the admiration of officers and legionaries. No other Roman general knows how to reach agreement with the barbarian warriors like him. Aetius is brave and, thanks to the Hun mercenaries, is surrounded by the aura of victories. Indeed, there is no other general in the Roman Empire of the West with such great authority and so great prestige among the soldiers. So we have to continue to bear it. Otherwise Attila will take me with my bare hands and punish me for Honoria. But if I accept the marriage of my daughter Eudoxie with the son of Aetius, Very honestly, I doubt much to live long afterwards. The only solution for me is the very convincing disclosure of the treacherous projects of Aetius and its execution following the example of my uncle, the Emperor Honorius, who caused the all-powerful Stilicon to be executed. I do not see any other way out. Salvian is silent. He sees no satisfactory solution for the young emperor. Honoria could save the empire. Having concluded the union with Attila, then his brother remained at least alive. But what can poor Valentinian do now? Salvian remembers his first encounter with Galla Placidia and how they watched a boy playing near the fountain. He looks out the window and sees the bloody sunset.